I still remember how quiet the office used to be after 7 p.m. Most of the staff would leave by then, leaving behind a silence that wrapped around the building like a soft fog. I liked that silence. It was the only time I could hear myself think, the faint hum of the air conditioner, the distant sound of a printer, and the clicking of my own keyboard. My name is Emma, and at 27, I had already spent 2 years working in that corporate maze of glass walls and polite smiles. I wasn't the most confident one in the room, never loud, never bold, but I was the kind of employee who stayed late, double-checked everything, and quietly carried the team on my back. I told myself I did it for ambition, but deep down, I knew there was another reason I never left early. Her name was Miss Claire. She was 40 tall, elegant, and the kind of woman who carried authority in her very presence. The kind of boss who didn't need to raise her voice to be obeyed. She had sharp eyes, calm yet commanding, and a way of speaking that made everyone listen carefully. But there was something else about her, something no one dared to talk about, a mysterious warmth beneath that strict exterior. For months, I admired her from a distance. The way she adjusted her glasses during meetings, the subtle smile when she noticed something done perfectly, the faint scent of her perfume that lingered in the hallway long after she passed. There was something magnetic about her, something that drew me in without my permission. I used to catch her looking at me sometimes, not in a professional way, not exactly. It was a look that lasted a second too long. Once, during a presentation, our eyes met, and she didn't look away immediately. I remember the slight curve of her lips, the soft, "good work, Emma," that followed after everyone else had left the conference room. It was such a simple phrase, but it stayed with me for days. At first, I convinced myself it was nothing, just admiration for my work, or maybe her way of encouraging me. But then there were moments, small, almost invisible moments, that made me question everything, like the time she stood behind me while I worked late, leaning slightly over my shoulder to check a report. Her voice was calm, but her breath brushed the back of my neck when she spoke. I froze, my fingers still on the keyboard, pretending to focus while every part of me was awake and trembling. Or the time she complimented my new hairstyle, a detail no one else noticed. "It suits you," she had said softly, her eyes lingering before she turned away. These small things shouldn't have meant much. But when you're starved of affection, even small kindnesses feel like sunlight. I wasn't sure what I was feeling anymore. Admiration, curiosity, or something far deeper and more dangerous. Every time I tried to suppress it, it came back stronger. I told myself she was my boss, a woman with power and reputation, possibly married. And I was just an employee, young, quiet, replaceable. But feelings don't ask for permission. They just happen. There were evenings when I would sit at my desk long after everyone left, pretending to finish reports while secretly hoping to hear her footsteps. Sometimes I'd see her through the glass wall of her cabin, working, focused, unaware of the storm she had created inside me. Other times, she'd glance up from her desk and find me still there. Her brows would lift in quiet surprise before she'd give me that faint smile, the kind that said 1,000 things without saying a word. The office felt like a world of its own at night. The light from the monitors reflected on the glass, the sound of distant rain tapping the windows, and the cold air brushing against my arms. I used to sip coffee, play soft music in my headphones, and think about her, about how someone could be so strong yet so gentle, so distant yet so close. There were rumors about her, whispers among the staff that she was cold, that she didn't care for anyone personally. But I had seen a different side of her. The way she helped a junior employee through a panic attack. The way she stayed calm when a client insulted her work. The way her eyes softened when she was deep in thought. She wasn't cold. She was guarded. And I wanted to know why. I often imagine talking to her, not as a boss and employee, but as two women alone in that quiet office. I imagine her telling me what made her so strong, what she feared, what she loved. I imagined her laughing freely without her professional mask. Those thoughts used to keep me awake at night. That particular evening, I was working late again. Everyone had left. The office lights were dimmed, except for mine and the soft golden glow from her cabin at the end of the corridor. I could see her shadow moving behind the glass wall. My heart was beating faster than it should. I told myself to stop looking, but I say O-U-L-D in single quotes T dot then suddenly my desk phone rang. I jumped. The sound felt louder in the silence. I picked up, my voice trembling slightly. Emma? It was her voice, calm, deep, familiar. Yes, ma'am? There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, soft and controlled, as if she was thinking before speaking. Can you come to my cabin? She said finally, I need to discuss something important. Something inside me shifted, excitement, fear, maybe both. My heart raced as I stood up, smoothing my shirt with shaky hands. I looked at my reflection in the black glass of the office window, nervous eyes, slightly messy hair. 1,000 unspoken emotions dot as I walked down the quiet corridor toward her cabin. Every sound felt amplified, the click of my heels, the hum of the air conditioner, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. I stopped at her door, the soft glow from inside spilling into the hallway. My hand hovered over the doorknob. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen between caution and curiosity. Part of me wanted to turn back, pretend I didn't hear her call. But another part, the one that had been quietly yearning for her attention all these months, whispered, Go Dot. I took a deep breath. Then I opened the door Dot, and though I didn't know it then, that single moment would become the one I would remember for the rest of my life. The soft click of the door echoed behind me as I stepped into her cabin. The room felt different that night, quieter, warmer, almost intimate. The faint scent of Claire's perfume floated through the air, familiar and disarming. A mixture of vanilla and something floral I could never quite name. The golden glow from the desk lamp cast gentle shadows across the walls, painting the space in amber light. Her laptop was closed. There were no files, no scattered papers, just 2 steaming coffee mugs sitting side by side on her table. As if she had been waiting for me. Come in. Emma, she said softly, her voice calmer than usual. I nodded, closing the door gently behind me. My heartbeat was so loud I could almost hear it. I sat across from her, trying to steady my breathing, but everything in that moment felt heavier than it should. The air, the silence, the distance between us. You're working late again, she said, looking at me with that half smile she often wore, the kind that seemed to hide 1,000 thoughts behind it. I had a few reports left. I replied, my voice quiet. Didn't want to leave them unfinished. She nodded, her gaze never leaving mine. You always say that. A small laugh escaped my lips, nervous and brief. I guess I like keeping busy. She tilted her head slightly, studying me. Or maybe, she said, you don't like being alone. Her words landed softly, but they made my stomach tighten. I looked down at my hands resting on my lap, unsure what to say. She wasn't wrong. I didn't like being alone. But I hadn't expected her to see through me so easily. After a pause, she spoke again. Do you ever feel lonely here? Her tone wasn't that of a boss. It was gentler, more human. For a moment, I forgot I was in an office. Sometimes, I admit it quietly. It's just the same routine every day. Work, home, repeat. She nodded slowly, as if she understood that feeling too well. I know what you mean, she said. People think being in charge makes you powerful, but sometimes it just makes you lonely. There was something raw in her voice, something that broke the image I had built of her, the flawless, untouchable woman who always had everything under control. That night, she didn't look powerful. She looked tired. Human. She leaned back slightly, her eyes distant for a second before meeting mine again. You've been here for 2 years, Emma. I've seen many people come and go. But you, she paused, choosing her words carefully. You're different? Different? I echoed, my throat dry. Yes, she said softly. You work like you have something to prove. You stay late, never complain, always quiet. Sometimes I wonder what drives you. I tried to smile, but it came out fragile. Maybe I just don't know how to stop. Her eyes softened. Or maybe you don't want to stop. The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. My palms were sweating, my breath shallow. She looked at me like she was searching for something, an answer, a sign, maybe even courage. Then she said it. There's something about you, she whispered. Something I can't ignore anymore. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. The words hung between us like electricity. I wanted to ask what she meant, but I couldn't move. My lips parted, but no sound came out. Claire stood up slowly and walked around her desk, her heels barely making a sound on the carpet. She stopped beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her presence. I turned my head slightly, and our eyes met close. Too close. You shouldn't say things like that, I murmured, my voice barely a whisper. Why not? She asked gently, because. I hesitated, feeling my heart thudding painfully in my chest. Because it's not right. She smiled faintly, sadness flickering in her eyes. Sometimes the right thing feels empty, she said, and the wrong thing feels like breathing. I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. My eyes stung, and before I could stop myself, tears began to gather. I blinked rapidly, embarrassed, but one tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. Without a word, Claire reached out, her fingers brushing against my face as she wiped it away. Her touch was soft, too soft. Hey, she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. You don't have to hide how you feel. Her hand lingered on my cheek longer than it should have. My eyes met hers again, and in that moment, I saw everything she was trying to hold back. Fear, affection, loneliness, and something dangerously close to love. Time seemed to stop. The sound of the rain outside faded. The ticking clock on the wall disappeared. All that existed was her hand, her eyes, her closeness. Then slowly, she leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't even passionate. It was gentle, almost hesitant, like a secret too fragile to speak aloud. For a second, I froze. My mind screamed that this was wrong, but my heart had never felt more alive. The warmth of her lips sent a shiver through me, and every piece of me, every quiet, lonely part one had hidden for years, came undone in that single moment. I didn't move. I didn't push her away. I just sat there, lost between guilt and longing, between the woman I was and the one I was becoming. When she finally pulled back, there were tears in her eyes too. She looked at me, not like a boss, not like someone in control, but like someone who had just broken through her own walls. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. The clock ticked once. The rain tapped against the window again. The room was still. Inside me, something had shifted forever. That night, I didn't know if what happened was right or wrong. All I knew was I didn't want her to stop. The morning light felt heavier than usual. I woke up early, before the alarm, my head still foggy and my heart still racing from memories I couldn't silence. The city outside my window looked the same. People rushing to work, buses passing, the faint hum of life, but everything inside me had changed. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the tall glass building across the street, our office. The same building where last night everything happened. My mind replayed it over and over again, her voice, her eyes, her touch. The way the silence wrapped around us after that kiss. And then came the guilt. Claire was my boss, a respected married woman, and I was the one who should have stopped it, but I didn't. Every time I thought about her lips against mine, my stomach twisted with both warmth and shame. My hands trembled when I remembered the look in her eyes, that mix of longing and sadness that didn't belong in an office, didn't belong anywhere outside the heart. I wanted to tell myself it was just a mistake. That emotions sometimes spill over when life gets lonely. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. There was something real in what happened, something fragile, beautiful, and wrong all at once when I reached the office that morning. Everything looked ordinary. The hum of conversations, the clinking of coffee mugs, the printers whirring in the background. But for me, every sound felt distant, every color faded. I tried to look normal, to blend in, to pretend nothing had happened. I caught a glimpse of Claire through the glass wall of her cabin. She was already at her desk, eyes on her computer, her face calm and unreadable. Not a trace of what happened the night before. For a moment, our eyes met. Just a second, but in that second, my breath caught. Her expression didn't change. She looked away first, thought it felt like a knife twisting quietly inside me. All day, she didn't call me in once. No. Emma, can you come here? No soft glances. No words. Only emails, short, professional. Cold. Each message felt like a wall being built higher and higher between us. I tried to convince myself that it was for the best, that maybe she regretted it and was trying to protect us both. But that didn't make the silence any easier to bear. By the third day, the distance between us had become unbearable. During a team meeting, she stood just a few feet away from me, speaking to everyone about quarterly reports. Her tone was sharp, confident, the Claire everyone knew. But every time her eyes moved across the room and landed on me, her words faltered just for a second. No one noticed, but I did. After the meeting, I stayed behind to pick up the projector cables, pretending to be busy. She passed by without looking at me, without even a nod. That small moment hurt more than anything else. In the days that followed. The silence became its own kind of torture. I'd walk into her cabin to drop off files, and she'd simply say, "Thank you, Emma," without looking up. Her voice was polite, distant, rehearsed. I wanted to ask her, was it all just a moment of weakness? Did it mean nothing? But I didn't have the courage. Instead, I drowned myself in work. Reports, emails, spreadsheets, anything to keep my mind from remembering that night. But the more I tried to bury it, the more it haunted me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face from that evening, the flicker of warmth, the trembling in her voice. It didn't feel like a mistake then. So why was she pretending now? One afternoon, I was walking past her cabin when I heard her voice, soft but tense. She was on the phone. I shouldn't have stopped, but something in her tone made me freeze. "Yes, I know," she was saying, her words slow and controlled. "I'll be home late again. Don't wait for me." A pause. Then her voice lowered, almost cracking. "No, it's fine. We don't have to talk about this again." I stepped back quietly, heart pounding. The sound of her voice, the exhaustion in it, told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't happy. Her marriage wasn't perfect. And maybe that's why she reached for me that night, not because she loved me, but because she needed to feel something real again. That realization hurt more than any rejection ever could. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, the small lamp lighting my journal, my only safe place. I opened a blank page and began to write, pouring every thought, every ache, every unanswered question onto the paper. Why did she kiss me? Did she mean it? Does she think about it like I do? I wrote about the guilt that was eating me alive, about the emptiness that followed the silence. I wrote about how unfair it felt to fall for someone who wasn't free, who could never be mine. Tears fell on the page, smudging the ink. But I didn't stop. Writing was the only way to keep from breaking completely. Hours passed. The room was quiet except for the scratching of my pen. I could still smell her perfume on the sleeve of the blazer I'd worn that night. It was faint now, fading, just like everything else. When I finally closed the diary, the clock read past midnight. My hands were cold, my eyes swollen, but my heart felt lighter, at least for the moment. I looked out the window at the city lights, thinking about her. I wanted to hate her for pretending nothing happened. I wanted to hate myself for letting it happen. But I couldn't. Love, or whatever this was, doesn't follow rules. It simply leaves marks that never fade. And as I turned off the lamp, I whispered to myself, almost like a confession, I didn't just lose control that night. I lost a piece of myself I'll never get back. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. The clock ticked once. The rain tapped against the window again. The room was still. Inside me, something had shifted forever. That night, I didn't know if what happened was right or wrong. All I knew was I didn't want her to stop. That week felt longer than any other. Each day dragged through the same familiar rhythm, the typing sounds, the smell of coffee, the hum of the air conditioner, yet nothing felt familiar anymore. Since that night, my world had changed, and so had she. I tried to act normal, but pretending was like walking barefoot over shattered glass. Every step hurt. Every moment reminded me of her, the woman who broke my silence and then built a wall between us. I stopped lingering near her cabin. I stopped staying late. I thought distance would help, but distance only magnified what I was trying to escape. I missed her voice, even the way she used to say my name. I missed the way her perfume lingered in the hallway, the soft tap of her heels echoing down the corridor. The more I tried to avoid her, the more I realized how much space she had occupied inside me. I hated that I couldn't hate her. Then one Thursday evening, just as I was about to leave, her voice called out from behind me, "Emma, can you come to my cabin for a moment?" My heart stopped. The same line, the same voice, but this time it didn't carry the warmth it once did. It sounded fragile, trembling even. I froze for a moment before turning. She stood by the glass door, her eyes heavy, her posture tired. Maybe she had been fighting herself too. When I entered her cabin, it looked different, not in appearance, but in energy. The desk was cluttered with papers she hadn't even tried to organize. Her coffee sat untouched, gone cold. She didn't look like my boss anymore. She looked like a woman burdened with emotions she couldn't voice. "Close the door," she said quietly. I did. And suddenly, it was just the two of us again, trapped between memories and regret. I wanted to talk. She began, her tone unsteady. "About that night." I swallowed hard. "There's nothing left to say, Claire. It happened. We can't undo it." She looked down. "I know, but I can't stop thinking about it. About you." Her honesty felt like both a gift and a wound. I wanted to scream, to ask why she had kissed me, why she had made me believe in something she never planned to keep. Instead, I stood there, silent, suffocating. Claire got up slowly and walked closer, her voice shaking. "Emma, you don't understand. I care about you. More than I should." I took a step back. "Then why are you punishing me with silence? Why did you make me feel like I imagined everything?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm scared. You think I don't want to see you?" "I do every second. But I have a husband, a name, a life built on a lie I can't tear down." Her words tore through me like a storm. "So I was, what?" A moment of truth inside your lie? Don't say that, she whispered. You were never just a moment. Then what was I, Claire? My voice broke. Because I wake up every morning hating myself for wanting someone I can't have. She looked at me, eyes red, voice trembling. You were my escape, my peace. But I can't lose everything for love that the world will never understand. That sentence shattered me. My chest tightened as tears blurred my sight. You made me believe in something that never existed, I whispered. Stepping back as my voice cracked out, she reached out instinctively, grabbing my hand. Don't say that, Emma, please. I love you. Maybe not the way you want, but I do. I pulled my hand away. You love the idea of me, the girl who listens, who stays silent, who makes you feel seen. But when it comes to standing beside me, you disappear. The silence that followed was unbearable. The only sound was our uneven breathing and the faint hum of the city outside. Claire's tears finally fell. She covered her face, shaking as though holding the weight of her own contradictions. I stood frozen, angry, broken, but still loving her in ways I didn't want to. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, resting her head on my shoulder. The warmth of her body sent a wave of pain through me, because I knew this hug wasn't a beginning. It was an ending disguised as comfort. We didn't kiss. We didn't speak. We just stood there, two women caught between desire and duty, holding on to a love that could never survive outside those four walls. When she finally let go, she whispered, I wish I met you in another life. I closed my eyes, forcing back the tears that burned. Maybe in another life you'd be brave enough to stay. There was nothing left to say. She turned away, and I walked toward the door. My hand trembled on the knob, and I looked back one last time. Claire stood there, strong, beautiful, and utterly broken. For the first time, she didn't look like my boss. She looked like a woman who had lost something she couldn't name. As I stepped out, the corridor felt colder than ever. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, and my reflection in the glass wall looked like a stranger, someone emptied of all color. That night, when I lay in bed, I could still feel her heartbeat against mine, faint, distant, like a memory that refused to fade. We didn't say goodbye, but something in me knew that was the last time I'd ever feel her heartbeat against mine. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. The clock ticked once. The rain tapped against the window again. The room was still. Inside me, something had shifted forever. That night, I didn't know if what happened was right or wrong. All I knew was I didn't want her to stop. The office no longer felt like a place of work. It felt like a memory I couldn't escape. Every desk, every hallway, every sound reminded me of her. The way she used to call my name softly during meetings, the faint trace of her perfume when she passed by, the echo of her laughter during those rare moments when she allowed herself to smile. Now, all of it felt distant, like echoes from a life I could never go back to. I started arriving late and leaving early. I sat in corners, avoided her cabin, avoided her eyes. The more I tried to stay invisible, the heavier my heart became. There were moments when I caught myself glancing at her door, hoping, praying for it to open, for her to call my name again. But she never did. She had built her wall again, tall, cold, unbreakable. One night, after everyone had left, I sat alone at my desk, staring at the blank screen. The cursor blinked, waiting for me to write something. Without realizing, my fingers started typing subject, resignation letter. Each word that followed felt like bleeding through my fingertips. Dear Miss Claire, I've decided to move on from the company. It's been an incredible journey, but I think it's time for me to take a step forward and find a new path. Thank you for everything. Emma, when I finished, I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. My eyes blurred with tears I didn't even feel falling. My finger hovered over the send button, but I couldn't do it. Not yet. Some foolish part of me still waited for a sign, a glance, a message. Something that said, "Don't go. Days passed." Nothing came. She didn't look at me, didn't speak to me beyond polite, professional sentences. I convinced myself she was pretending too, that she was just trying to protect herself. But with each passing day, I began to realize that maybe in her world, love was something she could choose to forget. Finally, one quiet evening, I clicked send. The email was gone, like a message in a bottle thrown into the sea. The next morning, I came to work pretending like it was just another day. My resignation hadn't been acknowledged yet, but I knew it would reach her soon. By noon, my inbox blinked with a new message. It was from Claire. Just one line. "I understand," that was all. No thank you, no goodbye, no let's talk. Just, "I understand." I stared at the words for minutes, maybe hours. That simple sentence broke me in ways I can't explain. Because "I understand" wasn't closure, it was silence dressed as acceptance. It was her way of saying, "I won't stop you." And that hurt more than any rejection ever could. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of her, the way she smiled, the warmth of her touch, the way she looked at me that night in her cabin. I kept asking myself, was it love for her, or just loneliness she mistook for it? Tears came in waves. I tried to stop them, but they kept returning, like the sea refusing to calm. My pillow was soaked, my chest heavy, my heart hollow. I wanted to hate her, to erase her from my thoughts, but love doesn't fade with reason. It lingers like perfume on an old letter. In the following weeks, I withdrew from everyone. I skipped lunches, ignored calls, stayed silent even when my colleagues asked if I was okay. I wasn't. I was somewhere between breaking and pretending. The emptiness inside me had a name, Claire. Every corner of that office became a ghost of her. When the elevator door opened, I imagined she would step out. When someone laughed softly, it reminded me of her voice. Even the scent of coffee carried traces of our memories. The night she poured me a cup with trembling hands. The night that started everything. I often found myself looking at her empty chair during meetings, trying to imagine what she was thinking. Did she regret it? Did she miss me? Or was I already a chapter she had quietly closed? I wanted to ask, but I knew the answer would only hurt more. The day I left, I didn't say goodbye. I didn't have the strength. I walked past her cabin, paused for a moment, and looked through the half-open blinds. She was sitting at her desk, focused on her computer, her expression calm, unreadable. She didn't look up. Maybe she sensed I was there. Maybe she didn't. I walked out quietly. My heels clicked against the marble floor, a sound that echoed like farewell. When the elevator doors closed, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding for weeks. My chest ached, but there was also a strange calmness, the kind that comes after a storm. When everything is broken, but at least it's quiet. That night, I stood by my apartment window, watching the city lights blur through my tears. Somewhere out there, she was probably home with her husband, living the life she chose. I didn't hate her for it. I just wished she had been brave enough to choose me, I whispered to the night, as if she could hear me. You'll always be the one I remember, not for how you loved me, but for how you let me go. And in that whisper, I felt something shift, not healing. Not yet, but the beginning of acceptance. Because some people don't leave with words or goodbyes. They leave quietly, like Claire did, but their silence, their absence, stays forever. It's been 4 years since that night, yet sometimes it still feels like yesterday. The rain falls softly outside my window, tapping against the glass like gentle reminders of things I've tried to forget. My apartment is small, quiet, filled with the kind of silence that doesn't hurt anymore, just lingers. The kind you learn to live with. I've built a new life, a better career, new colleagues, even a promotion that once would have made me proud. But no title, no salary, no city lights have been able to erase the shadow of that one night, the night my boss called me to her cabin. There are days I convince myself I've moved on, that she was just a chapter. But love, real love, even the kind you can't name aloud, doesn't just end. It changes form. It hides in small places, in the smell of coffee, in the glow of office lamps, in the way rain sounds at midnight dot sometimes when I stay late at work. I catch myself looking at the empty chair beside me, imagining her voice again. I wonder if she ever thinks of me, if that night crosses her mind the way it still crosses mine. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe for her, it was a moment tucked safely away, something she keeps locked behind duty and fear. But for me, it was the moment that changed everything. I've loved others since then, or at least tried to. But each time I find myself comparing them to her, no one looks at me the way she did, like I was both a question and an answer she wasn't allowed to have. No one makes silence feel so full the way she could with just a glance dot. It took me years to understand that love isn't always meant to last. Sometimes it arrives just to show you a piece of yourself you didn't know existed. Claire showed me that the part of me that could love without fear, without reason, even without promise, but she also showed me the cost. There are nights I wake up and feel her touch again, not real, but remembered. The warmth of her hand, the tremble in her voice, the sadness in her eyes. And then it fades, leaving only the ache of knowing I'll never feel it again. I never saw her after I left the company. Not once, but sometimes, when I pass through that part of the city, I slow down near the old building. It's still there, tall, glassy, and different. The world has moved on, but to me, that place still holds the ghosts of who we were. One evening, curiosity won over fear. I stood across the street, looking up at the top floor where her cabin used to be. The lights were still on. Maybe someone new sat there now in her chair. Or maybe it was still her. Maybe she was still sitting behind that desk, lost in her thoughts the way she always was. The rain blurred my vision. Or maybe it was the tears I didn't realize were falling. I smiled, a small, sad smile. Because in that moment, I understood. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even broken. I was just changed. Love doesn't always give you the ending you want. Sometimes it just gives you the memory, and that has to be enough dot as I turned to leave. I whispered into the rain, "Thank you for teaching me how deeply I could feel." Because that night, the night she called me in, when everything was quiet except our hearts, that night wasn't a mistake. It was a truth too fragile for the world to hold dot, and their time has buried it under years of distance and silence. I know I'll carry it with me until the end, because she didn't just touch my lips that night. She touched the part of my soul I'll never get back. Soft piano music fades in. The rain grows louder. The screen fades to black.